David here with Figboot on Pens, back with another ink review. I said that I'd do more ink reviews this year, and I'm trying to hold myself to that. What I have for you today is something from Papier Plume, and that is their new ink, House of the Rising Sun. Papier Plume is a retail store based out of New Orleans, Louisiana, but also has an online presence. And the name of the ink is a reference to a song, the history of which I'll go over in a little bit. But in order to take a look at this interesting ink, let's go over here to camera 2. To start off with, this is what the ink looks like, or this is what the bottle looks like. I really like the Papier Plume's bottles. They always put this wax seal up here at the top, cover the top with wax. It just kind of looks neat, and that I like all of their bottles. They're nice wide opening, easy access to get all the ink you need to out of here. But House of the Rising Sun. In regard to the color itself, this is what a swatch of it looks like. It's kind of a nice, kind of a burnt orange, almost kind of like a blood orange. It's, I don't have anything exactly like it. This is what it looks like in regard to Noodler's Apache Sunset, which I know is is a favorite of folks, but just there was something about it that I didn't particularly care for. It was just a little too light. Here it is in regard to Iroshizuku Yuyaki. Again, another orange that I know people really love, but it just wasn't one of my favorites. Here is a J. Herbin Orange Indian. And then here it is with Diamine Blaze Orange. Then, I've kind of been into orange inks lately, and there's two orange inks that I really care for. One of which is the Ackerman Orange Bovin, or Orange Bovin, and then Mont Blanc Lucky Orange. And you could say that both of these are kind of more vibrant oranges, and this one is a little more on the reddish side. But I do like this one a lot. And how it looks on the page is like this. We can see here, this is Rhodia paper, the 80-gram paper. I find that it has like some minor bleed through in here, not a ton. And then it's kind of a medium when it comes to the shade and sheen. Now, what I did was I actually put some on some, this is some Tomoe River paper, and I put it on rather heavy here, and I will say that this didn't necessarily turn out the most attractive. And I did put it on a little bit lighter here, but you could really see the darker tones in regard to this. And then I know I did put it on rather heavy, but it's some of the yellowish actually bled through on here. But again, I put it on rather heavy. And then you could actually see here some remnants of my last ink test that I did with Schrodinger on here. The pens that I used on this test is I used a Diplomat Aero for the fine, which is this one right here, which is actually their new, this is the factory finish. And then for the medium, we have the Montegrappa. And then for the 1.1, we have the Lamy All-Star. For this top here, I used a 2.4 millimeter Pilot Parallel. So the ink is actually named after a song, the song House of the Rising Sun. And so I thought here for some of the writing sample, I would show you some of the lyrics to the song, or at least the opening few lines. So the very first line is, "There is a house in New Orleans and then for a medium, the next line of the song is, "They call the rising sun And then next we have the Lamy 1.1, and the next line is it's been the ruin of many a poor boy and God, I know I'm one. Okay, time for a little bit of history about the song, The House of the Rising Sun. It was a popular American folk song whose origins date back to 1905. It was recorded a few times by Woody Guthrie in 1941 and then by Bob Dylan in 1961, 20 years later. It was most notably recorded by the British group The Animals in 1964. The song is actually very dark, and while it's told from the perspective of a boy, the traditional version of the song is told from the perspective of a young woman who had basically been corrupted into a life of ruin at a brothel. There's a question whether the House of the Rising Sun actually existed. There's a prominent theory that it was located at this address on St. Louis Street in New Orleans around the mid-1860s, and purportedly was named for its madam, Marianne Le Soleil Levant, whose name translates to the Rising Sun. I actually thought it would be interesting to hear how the song has changed over the years. So here's a bit of the Woody Guthrie version from 1941.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. Been the ruin of a many a poor gal and me, oh God, I'm one.
And here's the Dylan version from 20 years later in 1961.
There is a house down in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many poor girls and me, oh God, I'm a one.
And finally, here's the Animals version just 3 years later in 1964.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. In God, I know I'm one.
I find that the Animals version is really derivative of Dylan's. It's been said that it really irked Dylan that people actually believed that his version was a cover of the Animals version of the song, not the other way around. So down here we have, I would say that the ink flow is rather wet for this pen. For the drying time, it does take until at least between 15 and 30 seconds for it to fully dry. I do find that this ink is rather wet, and with wider nibs, it's going to have less of a color saturation. In that while typically I actually prefer a more vibrant orange like that Mont Blanc and the Ackerman that I showed you, I do find that this ink is well behaved and shades very nicely. And then finally here, I said that the House of the Rising Sun has become one of my favorite non-bright oranges. So next we have a water test. So actually, you know what? Let me take it off of here for the water test. So we have a water test over here that I'll just... Well, my dabbing of water is not too exact today. There, so we'll just put a little water on there. And while we're letting that dry, or actually just soak up a little bit, let's take a look at a little bit of the chromatography. So there you can see that that the orange is then drawn out actually into two main colors, which are kind of a magenta and then a kind of more of a golden yellow. And this is what the chromatography ended up looking like. I just think it's kind of neat seeing how the color is drawn out there and to see what colors actually go into it. Well, let's take a look at our water test and see what happened there. And that, it looks like I wouldn't necessarily call it waterproof, but the magenta stuck around for a lot more than the yellow did. So there you have Papier Plume's House of the Rising Sun. I really like this ink a great deal. I've been into oranges recently, but really only had the two that I cared for, and I'm glad that I found a third orange ink that I can turn to as well. In addition, I think it matches up really well with like a coral colored pen, just like this Monte Grappa. So it's one that I'm glad I got to check out. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.